madness, insanity, live in profanity. Then some punk claiming they understand me? Give me a break. What world do you live in? Death is my sect, now guess my religion. Colors.
Woo! That's cold right there, man. Let me give you one rhyme for the road, man. Here, let's go back. Since you busted some rhyme, here you go. I write rhymes with addition and algebra, mental geometry. Don't even come at me. Talking that weak and popping that bullshit, get out my face. A fool could get his head split. A lot of doubters said it couldn't be done by me. Them same suckers are now looking from under me.
Woo! Woo!
It's not YouTube shutting you down. It's other people telling YouTube to shut you down. I learned I have the right to say anything, but I gotta be prepared for the blowback and the ramifications of what I say. You got this name, you got this reputation, be that motherfucker, man. I'm not gonna fight you. I'll just leave and I'll find another vehicle to put my message out. Players don't whine or cry, they figure this shit out, man.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs, sharing our vulnerability, overcoming our fears, transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Ice-T, the American rapper, actor, producer, and author. You started your career as an underground hip-hop artist in Los Angeles before signing your first record deal in 1987. You've since gone on to release 15 albums, appear in over 80 films, and star in NBC's Law & Order Special Victims Unit for over 20 years. Throughout your career, you've encountered controversy and protest, especially for the song Cop Killer, a commentary on police brutality and racism that was widely censored and ultimately led to your departure from Warner Records. You're considered to be one of the pioneers of gangster rap, always on the forefront of new messages and mediums, and your work has always been an inspiration to me. Ice-T, welcome to London Real.
Thanks for having me, man.
It was great to have you. I was wondering if I could kick it off by asking you some advice. Would that be all right?
Let's start.
All right, you're the guy for this. So I put out a video log about a week ago that was titled, Freedom of Speech, Just Watch What You Say.
Absolutely.
And it was an homage to you and your album, and it was because I had just been censored, and I was angry, and I was kind of in protest. And just this is how this breaks down. On April 6th, I had a gentleman in this studio right here named David Icke, and we had a 2.5-hour conversation about some controversial stuff, the coronavirus, the 5G, the vaccines, Bill Gates, all this stuff. But it was two people talking for 2.5 hours. And it was the second largest YouTube stream in the world that day, second to only Donald Trump that day. So
right.
It just blew up. It was 65,000 concurrent people. And based on a previous episode I had with him 4 weeks earlier, it was 4 times as big. And when we did the numbers from his previous one, this would have been watched probably 30-some million times, we figured, as a video podcast, making it probably the biggest one in history, right up near Joe Rogan, Elon Musk levels, like 30-some million views. So we got done and we were like, man, this was incredible. It was a great vibe in the room, like some real serious thought. And then 30 minutes later, it was pulled and deplatformed from YouTube. So I've been doing this 9 years, having real conversations with real people, everybody from musicians to boxers to members of parliament to, CEOs of billion-dollar companies. And this is the first time that ever happened. And so my initial reaction was like, I was mad. And I started uploading different versions to YouTube. I tried to get in touch with them. They wouldn't call me back. And for the next 24 hours, I didn't get an answer. The BBC wrote about it the next day. They had already talked to YouTube. They said they took me off because I violated standards. And we got into this whole thing about censorship. And, for me, I just got angry because I thought First Amendment, freedom of speech, it's two guys having a calm conversation. And later I was banned on Facebook and Instagram. LinkedIn blew all my profiles away for sharing similar bits of that content. And I got angry and I thought about you, you know, with Cop Killer, and how also they didn't understand a nuanced conversation. Like YouTube said he was a COVID-19 denier. And I said, that's not what he said. You just didn't listen to it. And so I've been the last 2 weeks fighting this whole war, and all of my people around the world that watch us, millions of people, have been fighting back. And I've decided, as a symbol of protest, to have him back on again. And we're going to stream it on May 3rd. And I'm trying to get 1 million people watching this at the same time to make it the largest stream of a conversation in history. But we got to set up our own platform. So we just did a crowdfunding race. Yeah. You with me? All right. I'm almost done. So I was like, we can't do it on YouTube, but man, this bothers me. It just bothers me that they're saying we can't do this. And I know it's a private company and I signed the community standards, but it's a digital platform that represents human speech in the world. And I think they need to respect some civil liberties. So anyways, the end of it is that in the last 48 hours, these people in a recessionary economy when everyone's broke, and I've never asked for $1 in 9 years for London Real. I don't roll that way. I produce products. We just hit $350,000 for that fund. And it's going to take us 100,000 to probably stream 1 million people live. So the people have spoken. We're calling this the Digital Freedom Platform. And it's been this crazy thing that I've been wrapped up with. And I just thought of you and Cop Killer, and I feel like maybe YouTube is my equivalent of your Warner Brothers, because that's my distribution network. But I also feel there's a lot of political forces going in here I can't understand. I got government ministers calling me out. There's Ofcom, a regulator here in the UK, that's trying to shut, you know, things down. And who better to ask about this than you? So maybe you can talk about maybe your thoughts on this, and maybe even how you remember it going down with Cop Killer. I just watched that interview of you in Arsenio Hall, which, man, is powerful. I see a man with the weight of the world on his shoulders, but also you're represented on there. So just curious for your thoughts, Ice.
Freedom of speech, just watch what you say. Whenever you use somebody else's platform to get your message out, you can be censored by them. If I write in a magazine and I turn it in, and that magazine has a guy called an editor, he's going to determine what that magazine's positions are and if they want to let it fly. If they think it's going to mess with some of their ads or some of the people that pay to be on that site. So what you did was you made some people uncomfortable, and it's their platform. We don't own the internet. Like, people don't know. Like, you're on Instagram, you don't own Instagram. It's theirs. Facebook, it's theirs. Twitter, it's theirs. So they can just shut you down. So you still kind of playing in a censored world. You know, you got to know that they still control it. Now, like what you said is, if you create your own platform, then you can get it out. But you still don't own the internet. You see what I'm saying? So there still could be somebody that can still come over the top and somehow shut you down. The only time you actually have free speech is when you and I are sitting in front of each other, talking directly to each other. So it's kind of like, I learned I have the right to say anything, but I got to be prepared for the blowback and the ramifications of what I say. If I get on here and I say something considered anti-gay, I have to be prepared for gay people to attack me, even though I would never say something like that, because that's not how I feel. But if I were to, they're going to attack. If I say something about the cops, they're going to attack. So when I came out and I did that song, I was under the impression, oh, I have free speech. I could just say what I want to say and people will listen. Oh no, I got attacked. And I had to learn that. You know, I always say you have to be prepared for what you guys are going to put out. I mean, I tell people all the time, you can't go to your girl and say, hey, I just had sex with your sister, free speech. You know, like, there's going to be a blowback to what you say. So all I can tell you is that whatever you guys are putting out, you can't put it out expecting to use other people's vehicle without expecting them to shut it down. And then, I mean, who reads those standards and practices and whatever they make you sign? You just click the button, you know? So we don't really know what you can say on YouTube or what you can do on Twitter until you hit that wall. Just like me, I didn't know what I could do on Warner Brothers until I hit that wall. And Warner Brothers didn't censor me. Everybody thinks Warner Brothers censored me. No, Warner Brothers put the record out. They just got attacked. They got hit, and then they hit them in the pocket at the stockholders meeting. And of course, it's a business. So they're like, okay, if me and you have a big corporation and one person in that business is causing a problem and it's going to make us lose, they're going to have a conversation with you. So I decided to leave Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers never did one wrong thing to me. They were victims of the attack along with myself. They stood up as long as they could. And I decided to leave so that I could be free. So this is kind of like what you're doing. YouTube playing the games with you. You're like, you know what? I'm not going to fight you. I'll just leave and I'll find another vehicle to put my message out. That's just how it goes.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, you know, they have these community guidelines, but they're kind of enforcing them subjectively because there's 1,000 other videos that talk about the same thing, but it's kind of their right. And I think what you found out with Cop Killer was there was a lot of things going on. It was an election year. There was pressure from the government, and it was only happening because there were other forces outside pushing it. And I know the same with YouTube. They're getting
Listen. Yeah. It's not YouTube shutting you down. It's other people telling YouTube to shut you down. YouTube is just sitting back. They're not monitoring every video that goes out. They're sitting in their office, and then somebody raised hell that had enough power to make them shut you down. But it wasn't YouTube. They don't care. They got all kinds of stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, that's good perspective. So
the question is who did it? Who put the pressure on them to shut you down?
Well, you know, it's a crazy world right now where we're seeing a lot of civil liberties rolling back. You know, it's coronavirus time and the fears are escalated. So I think the governments are extra worried. And when people start talking about things that, I don't know, they think will foment dissent, you know, and get people panicking about 5G towers or maybe the COVID-19 is this or that, then they're going to lock down a little more. And I think they felt that pressure. I think, you know?
Well, there's so many conspiracies on YouTube. I mean, it's crazy, you know? And like myself, I've listened to so many. I'm that guy, you know, I make music. So I listen to everybody's angle. What I do know is that the virus is real. Now, I don't know where it's coming from or why it's coming, but I do know my friend died yesterday. One of my friends, a rapper named Fred the Godson, passed away yesterday. My other friend from Ghetto Boy, Scarface, he had it. He told me it felt like he had 300-pound weights on his chest and he was coughing razor blades. It took out his kidneys. Now he's on dialysis. So regardless to what it is real and you don't want to catch it. And the theory that people, you know, he told me, he said, Ice, your gangster can't fight this, man. If you catch it, you're going to go through hell. Whether you die or not, it's a bad motherfucker. Can I say that? It's a bad, it's a real thing. The virus is real. So that's the only thing that bothers me is people like, oh, well, the virus is a hoax. No. That's not a hoax. Now, why and where and if it was man-made or if it's coming, I'll figure that out later. But right now, you don't want to catch it. That's for the record.
Right. And you tweeted out the other day, when the guns start firing, you run for cover. You don't ask who's shooting. First.
And those people who think it's fake, I'm like, go volunteer at a hospital. I mean, since you can't catch it, since you're immune to it, go right to the front lines. You know, you don't need a mask. You don't need nothing. Just go right in there with somebody who's on a ventilator in a coma, be helping to breathe. I mean, basically, whatever this disease is or this virus is, it suffocates you. It's a wicked one. And there's been many before it. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying, I'm not the politician. I don't know how they should handle it, but I don't want it. So I'm keeping my black ass in the house. I'm quarantined and I just don't want it. Cause if I'm the kind of person that I learned from others' mistakes. If you told me, you said, Ice, they robbing people down that alley, I don't have to go down that alley because my man told me that they robbing people that I don't need. So when somebody like me tells you, yo, I know people that have died from it. So far, I know 6 people, let me do the right number, 6 people that have died. One of the guys worked on Law and Order SVU with me. He was my wardrobe guy and he would come in He was a 45-year-old Dominican cat, dead. So am I trying to scare you? No, Ice-T doesn't try to scare you. I just try to let you know what's real. And you make your decision.
And I mean, just to quickly finish up on the cop killer stuff, I mean, how did you keep it all together back then when, you know, the president of the United States is calling you out and you got, you know, IRS and everybody, the cops looking at you? I mean, do you ever think and look back and remember how you felt at the time? Because there's a lot of pressure you had.
I wasn't really concerned with the government because I knew they had no reason to kill me. They were misinformed on what I was doing. The Cop Killer was a protest record. I was just saying it. I wasn't part of some type of a militia that wanted to attack cops. I wasn't sending people after the cops. So they did their investigation on me. But when it got down to it, I wasn't really concerned with the government. I was concerned with running into a cop lover, like somebody whose brother was on the force or somebody who had a family member who's a police officer, and I'm coming out of the restaurant and they want to pick a fight. You see what I'm saying? Those types of things can happen. And then I got to defend myself, and, you know, we don't know how that's going to end up. So I learned that when you create beef, you always have to be prepared for the fallout. I learned a lot from that too. So, you know, I've explained myself. It's been over 20 years, and it was a protest record. The song was about police brutality. I think it was so radical because at the time, y'all didn't see the videos. No one was aware of what was happening. You know, Black people getting shot in their back and all this kind of stuff that, thanks God, the phone came out and everyone now can see. But I'm singing pre-Rodney King. And the Rodney King thing was not something that just was rare. This was their get down. This is how the cops were acting. They was beating people's asses and calling back up and whooping people. And, you know, what do you want to do? You want to fight back to that. Now that they're caught, I think the best thing that ever happened was the video phone, the videos inside the phone. So now every single person has to be held accountable because there's other citizens watching everything you do. That's the only thing that's made it relatively safe. People they know they're being watched, and that's police have to be policed.
You said on that sofa with Arsenio that you were ready to die for telling the truth. It
can happen. I mean, whatever you're saying, there's certain people out there, there's crazy people that want to take action against you if you speak. I don't want to die, but I know that's possible when you speak out. You know, if you don't want to cause any problems, just sit back and be very neutral on everything and be pop, you know, like pop music, pop, sing what everyone wants to hear, say what everyone wants you to hear. But I've always been rock. I'm gonna say what I feel. And, you know, I'm just aware. I'm aware of it. When I speak on that, like I could die, I'm aware of that. I'm not thinking, oh, well, I'm some guy that people are coming. I'm not saying that to big my ego up. I'm just saying, yo, people get angry. And I've gotten death threats my whole career. Me, Chuck D, all people like us, we get death threats and, oh, we're gonna kill you if you come to this city. We're gonna kill you, this, that, and the third. But I'm from the hood. You know, dogs don't bark, they bite. You dig? Anybody that got time to threaten me, I'm not worried about. I'm worried about that cat that's coming on a mission and he ain't telling nobody. That's the one to worry about.
And you said there was also other factors going on because maybe it was the first time in history where these kids, some of these like white suburban kids were bringing your music home and these parents were kind of freaking out. And I mean, I was one of those kids, you know, too, that was getting hooked on your message and your vibe. And you're saying that was also part of that whole kickback as well.
Well,
perhaps
the biggest fear on earth is for us to all become friends. And all of us to understand the plight of kids in Brixton and what's going on in London, and for London kids to understand what's going on in South Central or in the South, to where the media or whoever it is can't just make us all enemies. You see what I'm saying? It's easy not to like somebody that you don't know anything about. I could tell, you say, oh, we have all these people from Syria, these people, they're immigrants. We don't know anything about them, so therefore it's easy to dislike them. You don't know their struggle. You don't know their life. Music has allowed people to exchange their lives. So you say, oh, okay, I got it. I know what a goth kid is. I ain't got no problems with no goth kids. I mean, I don't got no problems with this kid. I don't have no problem. So when the like you say, the suburban white family is sitting down and dad sits back and says, all those niggers in South Central Los Angeles are rioting. His daughter says, they're not niggers, Dad. You're the problem. And the police have been taking advantage of Black people for years and years. And he looks over and he doesn't realize his daughter has on a Public Enemy t-shirt and has an IC poster over a princess bedroom set. He doesn't realize it's been home invasion. The kids are listening to the music. And once you understand somebody, you can't hate them as easily. So I think hip hop as a music has done more to bring the world together than any other music. We never stopped anybody from doing it. Eminem is like the greatest rapper in history at this point, you know, from his skills and styles, the #1 seller. We never stopped people. There's kids in Brazil, there's kids in London. It was a movement that allowed the world to become part of it. And it's your chance to tell your story. That's all hip hop is. It's your chance to tell your story and hear mine.
Well, how come that worked with hip hop and then not some other form of music? Was it just because it came from a place where you could express yourself and say what you want and you were encouraged to be you?
Well, hip hop has 4 entry points. You could be a dancer, you know, you could be a DJ, you could be a rapper, or you could be a graffiti artist. And the 5th element is you could just be a fan. And if you're a fan and you know the knowledge, you're part of the culture. The culture isn't so complicated. You can't, there's an easy entry level. Like you could be a dancer, you might be whack, but you can try. It's not like being an opera singer where you have to hit a certain level before you can even enter the culture. With hip hop, you can try to be a DJ. And, you know, we got a word in hip hop called whack. We'll tell you you're not there yet. You're whack right now. You got to step your game up. But that doesn't mean quit. That means get better, you know, and it allows anybody in. You know, if you can dance, if you can sing, all we ask is respect it. Respect the culture, because it saved my life. It saved so many kids' lives, whether it be white kids, Black kids all over the world. And we got haters, but see, hate is necessary for growth. Like I always told parents, they like, oh, well, I don't like rap. I'm like, you don't really like it, right? You really don't want your kids to listen to it? Yeah, make them listen to it. Tell them, hey, you got to listen to your rap record tonight. They'll hate it. They'll stop. They won't want to do it. As soon as you tell them that they got to do it, they don't. So it's born in when we are all like teenagers and we're looking for that level of rebellion, and hip hop is perfect. But it's really just a place to express yourself, which everybody wants to do. You don't need to know how to play an instrument. It's not difficult. It just takes a little bit of practice.
So there I was in 1988 at Torrey Pines High School in San Diego in my '68 Mustang, and I'm blasting Colors out the window. And you know, this place, it's like the Beverly Hills 90210 of San Diego, this school. I mean, kids rolling up in Benzos, it's crazy. And I spent my previous years kind of in Southeast San Diego at one of these magnet programs where it was like 80% Black and Hispanic. So I was down there learning computer science and stuff. That's how they roll back in San Diego. And then I was there at Torrey Pines High School and blasting Colors. And, you know, from Colors when I was 17, Ice, to when I went to MIT in my junior year, where we had this period called the inter-academic period, where 6 weeks you had no school. I spent 4 weeks with OG on repeats in my fraternity house while I painted literally a pentagram on my door. Like, I know it's kind of a crazy story, but I did. And then a couple years later, I listened to Home Invasion on repeat. But Ice, there was something about your music that allowed me to express and live out that rage is inside of me as a youth, in a way where I don't think I could have expressed it, and I sure couldn't have lived it out in a productive way. And yet by reciting your lyrics over and over again in my head and walking around, it allowed me to, I don't know, be free, understand myself. And maybe you can explain this to me, but it was a big part of who I am today.
Well, good music will connect to you. Like if you're hearing a love song and you're going through a particular moment in your life, that song will actually speak for you. And, you know, if you're going through a rage period in time, well, heavy metal might hit the bone. You might be like, yeah, you know, somebody was listening to the new Body Count album. They're like, makes me want to put my fist through a wall. Like, okay, all right. I think music is an accessory that goes with emotions. It's something that builds your emotion, changes your emotion, but it's good because when you're feeling a certain way, you're kind of stuck here. A song will take you here or take you here. It's like it's an addition to whatever you're feeling. The best records hit a note in your head. Like I'll say something that you're going through. I'll say something that you're feeling and you'd be like, that's my record right there. That's my record. I made a record called All Love Is Lost a couple of years ago. My son was breaking up with his girl. He's like, Dad, that's my song right there. That's my song. So what I try to do with music is catch emotions or catch moments in my life or other people's lives that's going to trigger those feelings. And that's what a good song is. Good art, it reaches off the canvas. Like you can look at a lot of paintings and you're like, I don't feel it. I don't feel it. But a good piece will trap you. And the art actually jumps off the canvas and grabs you. That's what good music does. Good music will just, or it'll take you to a place you were, you know, like you might listen to Whole Lot of Love by Led Zeppelin. You'd be like, man, I can remember where I was. I remember the girl I was dating. I remember the car I was driving. We played that all summer. I can remember this record by, what's it called? The New Radicals called You Only Get What You Give. Don't give up. You got the music in you. That song, me and 3 gangbangers drove all the way to Vegas playing that on repeat, singing that high part. We were singing, and I'm like, yo, man, these guys are in a shopping mall singing this record, and they don't realize they got 3 Crips in a car singing, don't you only get what you give. It was way out, man. It was a moment. You know, but that's music. Music translates like that.
But how is a 17-year-old white boy feel in colors? You know, I'm so removed from that environment, and yet I just felt like I could connect with that kind of anger and rage and misunderstanding. I don't know. It's still strange, though.
You can't explain it. You really can't explain it, and that's one of the beauties of music. Like I can't speak. Another thing about music, it crosses language barriers. Like we went to Russia, we went to we toured Germany, we tuned into Brazil. People don't speak the language, but they can say every word from the record. So you're like, do you even know what you're saying? That's the only English they know. So it's very fascinating, but that's the beauty of music. That's why music will always be around, because it's part of the fabric of humans. You know, anywhere you go, I don't care what level people are, I don't care how much money they got, there's some form of music there. So it's a beautiful thing. I guess it started way back with the cavemen beating on a drum. But somebody said, hey, do that again. He hit it once, boom. Somebody said, do that again, boom, boom. Keep doing boom, boom. Hey, you know, and it just took off from there.
Well, I guess at the end of the day, we all want connection. And when you hear a piece of music, I feel like I connect with your soul. And I guess your job as an artist is to be as authentic as possible so we can feel you without a filter, without your ego getting in the way. Is that how you think about creating Ice? Because your fans are a different breed than fans of other hip-hop artists. There's like, they feel deeply connected to you or to what you're talking about.
I never thought I could make music. Being a musician was never in my realm of possibilities. I mean, I was somebody who thought I was gonna rob enough banks or be a big enough hustler that I was going to be rich. I was in the streets heavy. And I started reading Iceberg Slim, and I started, you know, trying to live out his life. Now I'm emulating somebody in a book. And then one day I just had this epiphany. I'm like, this dude is a writer. Like I'm reading the words, but really he's a writer. So if you want to be somebody, you know, all players, they want to be known and they want that fame, you know. So I said, I can't just live the game. I have to document the game. Hip hop was a low-hanging fruit. It was something that I could try to do. So I tried to teach myself how to do it. Little did I know that my raps, people liked them. And they were like, man, do that again. And my content was real and people attached to them. I had no idea that I was going to have that response. That's why my first album was called Rhyme Pays, because it's coming from crime pays. I'm like, hey, people like this. My second album was called Power, because I realized these words have power. Kids in London are listening to this. You got to remember, you start making a record in your bathroom or in your closet, in your little house, wherever you are. Then you find out kids in Europe are listening to your words. Power. These words have power. And do you have an accountability or do you have a responsibility? My only responsibility was honesty. Was like, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna tell you about this criminal life, but you don't want to do it because most of my friends are in prison from it. So I'll tell you about it, but I'm never, sugarcoat it, let's say. I mean, you say, well, you glamorize it. Well, at the moment the crime is being committed is a glamorous moment. It's an exciting moment. But the kickback of it is the most negative thing that you're ever going to run into. So I always try, and that's honest. That's honest. When you say, oh, well, when you're doing this or you're selling drugs, you're doing wrong. No, you're in a mindset where you think you're doing the most glamorous, beautiful thing in the world till you get caught. And later, as you get older, you understand it. Like, I'm watching movies now. I just got finished watching Ozark, and I'm looking at the movie like, what were these people thinking? Like, did they have one single happy day? Not one. So that world isn't something you want to get involved in, unless that's something that if you really want to die young or end up in prison or, I had to learn it. But unfortunately, music saved me, like I said, and that's been my whole thing, is to try to explain some of these places that you might think you want to go that I've been. And I'm here to say, stay over here, do interviews with my man from London, chill in the house, have some palm trees in the background. It's safer.
Yeah. And you mentioned Iceberg Slim, and later I want to hear about you making that movie because that was epic. But I started reading Pimp probably on the back of knowing that you took on the Ice name and you had talked about it. So, I mean, when I was on Wall Street, in the 90s, I had American Psycho in one hand and Iceberg Slim, Pimp in the other hand. And honestly, Ice, those were my manuals for life. I thought they were user manuals. So, we'd use all the terms, we'd keep it icy, and then I'd be playing New Jack Hustler in my brain. I got a capitalist migraine, and I would listen to all this stuff. And, like you said, it channeled the moment I was in at the time. I knew I was in this crazy game where it was about
all you needed was
Castro.
Sun Tzu. You just needed the art of war right in the middle, and you were good to go. You were ready.
Yeah. Well, in the movie Wall Street, he's quoting Sun Tzu, The Art of War, so I'm sure I heard that in the background, But yeah, I mean, that became a big part of who I was, and in the moment, it all made sense. And again, a bunch of your songs were just really resonating. And, you have some great songs. I mean, and I guess everything you're saying is so genuine, the Rolex styling, buck wilding, cash piling, and, talking about intellectual high-tech cashing 7-digit checks and still breaking necks. I mean, it feels genuine. Like you were actually doing that stuff, and I could tell by the words.
It had to be genuine. It's kind of like, I want to put you in that life, put you in that seat, put you in the car right next to me, but I'm always going to let you know that we're headed for a crash, because to promote it, like I say in OG, that invincible stuff don't work. I'll throw you in a joint, you'll be coming out feet first. Don't get carried away with this. And there is a high, there is that moment when you're in that world, like you said, you're in Wall Street and it's going good. And then people say, well, do you feel bad about it? And I always quote Fargo. I say, it seemed like the right thing to do at the time. So when you're in that moment, you're not doing wrong. You have to get away from it to look back and go, wow, I was a real bastard. I was a real problem. And once I made that change and I decided, you know what, I'm not trying to hurt nobody. I'm not trying to rip nobody off. I'm just going to get what I deserve. I'm not, it's a big load off your shoulders. You're not sleeping. You're not looking over your shoulder. You're not worried about it. Then you get new enemies, you know, like these people, YouTube and all them. You're like, really? That's funny because that's what people always say. Well, I'm on Twitter and they like, are you bothered or people I'm like, dude, can't bother me on Twitter. I've been through real shit. You understand me? I've been through things. This is just jokes. These are just people. This is nothing, you know, in my life from what I've been through.
Yeah. You mentioned Original Gangster, and I'm wondering if you ever think about that album as if, I mean, it just still resonates. It's still relevant. I was just playing a few tracks today and it's like, man, it still hits me so hard. Do you ever feel like maybe that record happened through you, that you were channeling something else and you just it flowed out of you because there's something special about it?
I mean, all my music really kind of, I'm channeling. That's why I'm not the kind of person that could sit up and just write records. Like, I got to get in the right mode. Something has to trigger it. Like, I'm like, yo, I'm in this zone, or something, I'll catch something, a vibe, or you'll say something. I'm like, that's a song. And I can go in. Like one of my rhymes, I say, I can sit down and write a whole LP that night if everything clicks. The trick with Original Gangster was me trying to show people that there's two sides to the gangster. Like if you look at the album cover, one, I'm over here in shackles. That's your textbook gangster. Next one, I'm over here in the tux standing in front of a Ferrari. Oh, that's a businessman. No, that's a gangster too. It don't get it just because of when you see me over here, like, oh, okay. It's really saying no matter how you see me, I'm always the same person. Whether I have on a suit like you, or whether I'm on a rock stage, or whether I'm doing Law and Order SVU. I told people, they said, well, you used to be this, you used to be that. I said, well, let's look at it like this. If you had a serial killer and he became a gardener, right? Is he a gardener or a serial killer that likes flowers? Our cores are our cores, and we change a little bit, but I mean, I can sit up here and talk to you, but you're still that guy from Wall Street. Everything that happened to you all the way up through San Diego is still inside of you. That's who you are. That's what your core is. Now, you could be a different person now, but trust me, I wouldn't make a mistake and think that that part of you is gone or missing. It's just there. You've learned how to suppress it and direct your energy in more positive ways.
Yeah, you've always said you got to get yourself a legit hustle. I remember you saying that on Twitter or something, and I was thinking that's what I was doing on Wall Street. That's what I was doing here. I was just finding the legit hustle. And that's what you said you've done with your career.
When we were in trouble, the attorneys would tell us, they'd be like, yo, you know, you have a defense attorney. And they're like, have you noticed we'll never tell you to stop? We'll always just tell you, you know, we'll get you out. But that Rolex you're wearing, I know I'm going to get it. All the money you got, I'm going to get it because you're going to take that fall and I'm going to end up with it. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to send my kids down the same path as you. I'm going to send them to spring break. So, you know, the legit hustle is the holy grail of hustling. Everybody, if you think you want to be on that side or in the underworld forever, you must not have seen the last scene in Scarface. You know, you must not know that this is not going to go down well. But you take people like Jay-Z, you take people like Puffy, you take people like myself, you know, Dre, who came from Compton, came from the streets, and you see them make that transition now to being very successful tycoons. And that's what it's all about. And people are like, well, you guys are black kids from the hood. I don't care if you're Russian. I don't care if you're Jewish. I don't care if you're Italian. I don't care if you're white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, like the Kennedys. Somebody had to hustle to get that foot in the door. And then you transfer into this other world where you're legit and you don't have to cross the line. I would never tell anybody to break the law. I would never. There's kids that are fascinated with gangbanging and they just want to go gangbang. I'm like, why would you do that? You know, why would you do that? The kids that do it live in neighborhoods where it's kind of like forced upon them. But if you're from a nice suburban neighborhood and you want to walk around and act like you're in a gang, you're an idiot. You know, all the street cats are trying to get out. We're trying. Like now, I'm in my place in Arizona. I got a nice little swimming pool. I got a nice little situation out here. This is where we want to end up. I don't want to be hustling my whole life like that. I'm legit now. My boys tell me, they say, Ice, you playing the police on TV is the best Kaiser Sosa in the history of the game.
And like, I want to ask you about acting, because when you first decided to be a cop in New Jack City, you were worried. You asked your homies if it was okay, because I think you were worried they might be offended, and they were like, "Can I get a part?" Right? I mean, you weren't sure.
I didn't. Well, when they asked me to do that New Jack City, that's when I was doing the OG album. This is it simultaneously. So I got an album over here called Original Gangster, and they want me to play a cop. At the time of New Jack City, no rapper had successfully pulled off an acting role. You know, Will Smith wasn't out yet. They had done the rap movies, Break In, Tougher Than Leather, Beat Street, but no rapper had actually done a dramatic role successfully. So it was kind of like suicide. Like, I'm selling 1 million records over here. Why would I try to act and potentially destroy my rapping career? So it was a dilemma. But, you know, my friends were like, Ice, man, we come from a background with no opportunities. If you shit on these opportunities, you're a sucker, because right now there's an opportunity ahead of you for greater things. I've later on had somebody tell me, yo, maybe your rap career was your audition for film. That was your audition. You did a 7-album, 10-album audition to where Hollywood looked over and said, hey, that guy. So, and it's funny though, people come to me and go, well, we want to get into acting. And I'm like, well, I got in because I had sold a lot of records. And they go, oh, so you got in the easy way. I'm like, okay, well, if that's easy, go sell 10 million records. You know what I'm saying? If that's the easier route, I don't know. But I had to learn to appreciate it. When I first started acting, I really wasn't taking it serious. I was just doing it. And then, you know, one time I was at a record store, and I was looking through the records. People don't know what record stores are. This is a place where records used to be. You would have to actually go in and buy them. And I'm looking through the thing, and there was a guy there. He was maybe 65 years old working there. And I looked in the bin, and my record wasn't in the front of the bin. It was in the back, and I was like saying some grumpy stuff. And he's like, Ice-T, man, he said, you've had a career that very few people ever will. There's nothing you should be mad about. There's nothing. You're in the bin. I got a whole back room of records back there that nobody wants, that we've taken them out of the bins. You're still in the bin. And that's when that was the moment I realized, man, I'm never gonna talk bad down on myself or feel any kind of way. This man checked me right there. He said, man, you should never be mad at anything, you know? And I'm looking at him and I'm like, I could be working here. This could be, he's looking at me over here bitching about not being up front in the bin. I was like.
That's a good check. And what's the secret to acting? Because I mean, New Jack holds up. I mean, you're good in that movie, and you continued on to do many more things. And then 20 years, it's the longest running television show in history. I mean, how did you do it?
Longest running actor in history. Mariska is the long run. She got me by a few episodes as actress, but longest running continuous actor in television history. I think first to act, you gotta wanna do it. You can't be reluctant. You have to be willing to do it, because you gotta be willing to suck up the information from other actors. When I did Surviving the Game, I worked with F. Murray Abraham, and he had just won the Oscar. He said, Ice, have you ever took an acting lesson? I'm like, no. He said, don't. It'll mess with your mechanism. You are already acting with great actors. Learn from them. Those who can't do, teach. He says, you're working with working actors. That's who you want to learn from. Pick up their techniques, their styles, what they do. And I got to work with Denzel Washington. I've worked with some of the greats, and being on Law and Order for 25 years, it's like being in the most well.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.